Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. Western Conference Finals is now 2-1 Phoenix. In the Eastern Conference Finals, Game 2 of that series is tonight. Obviously, the Hawks have a 1-0 lead in that. I talked about Trae Young yesterday and why I think he's the fourth best point guard in the NBA after what he's shown us this far in the playoffs, so I can't wait for Game 2. I'm going to predict Game 2 at the end of the show, but a lot to talk about today. Scottie Pippen and Kevin Durant got a little feud going. Who would think? I mean, KD gets in a feud with everybody, but Scottie now is as outspoken as ever in this past year, not just with KD, but in a new memoir apparently that is coming out this fall by Scottie. So that'll be interesting. And so I think a little bit of that factors into this discussion and why I side with Kevin Durant. Also, Pro Football Focus ranks Dak Prescott the sixth best quarterback in the National Football League, which is exactly where I had him ranked long time ago. Pro Football Focus. Holla at you, boy. So I got that going, down the line of the show. And by Steph Curry, there's a lot of rumors. Will he leave Golden State? Will he go to the Lakers or wherever? No. And I'm not just saying this as a Warriors fan. He needs to stay in Golden State. He needs to stay there. I'll explain why later on the show. But let's start with Game 3, Western Conference Finals. We got a series now. It's 2-1 Phoenix still. Suns still got the series lead. Clippers are going to win the series. Why are you overreacting? Well, I don't think it's overreacting. Why? Again, this is the Clippers. What is this? Their fifth straight home win. Going back to Game 7 of the first round against Dallas. They won Game 7 at home. They won Games 3 and 4 against the Jazz, and they won Game 6 against the Jazz. And something, I don't know what it is, this team just likes to go down 0-2. They just like to go down 0-2, right? Down 0-2 to Dallas, and I buried them. I had their obituary written. I mean, they were done. And they came back and won 4 of the next 5, won the series. I picked the Jazz to beat them before the series even started in the second round. And they're down 0-2, and I'm like, yep, it's over. And the Clippers won the next 2, and then Kawhi goes down. I'm like, oh, it's really over now. And they won the next 2, and Paul George has finally now earned his nickname, his self-proclaimed nickname, Playoff P. And so I went into this series thinking, okay, looking at this, the Clippers are coming off 2 emotional series. One went 7, one went 6. There's no Kawhi Leonard. But I looked at the Phoenix Suns, and I'm like, okay, Phoenix, 2 weeks off. Devin Booker, now you're the man. Chris Paul, I said on this show, if Chris Paul missed 2 games, a minimum of 2 games, I had the Clippers winning the series. Why is that? Not just because you said, well, wouldn't that have went out the window even when the Suns won the 2 games without Chris Paul? No. Now, if you had told me Chris Paul's going to miss exactly 2 games, I'd have said, okay, I think they'll split. Phoenix will get a game. Clippers will get a game. Should have been the case, but Paul George misses those 2 free throws. A lot of things happened at the end of Game 2, and it culminated in DeAndre Ayton tipping in the game-winning shot to win it for Phoenix. But a big reason why I said that is we've seen a lot of players, some star players this season, come off of the COVID list, which Chris Paul was on. And it takes them a long time to get their legs underneath, to get back into basketball shape. Because, listen, and I don't know how COVID affected Chris Paul, so I can't speak to that. I do know how COVID affected me personally, because I did have COVID. And it sucks the energy out of you. It affects everybody different, of course. But me personally, sucked the energy out of me. And I wouldn't be shocked if that was the case possibly with Chris Paul. Add to it that he hadn't played basketball in 2 weeks. He hadn't played basketball in 2 weeks. So rest is great because obviously, they had 2 weeks off because they swept Denver. And the Clippers had to go through a 6-game series against the Utah Jazz. So while the Suns were more well-rested, I looked at all the components. Okay, when Chris does come back, will he be looking for his energy, trying to get his conditioning back, rusty from having 2 weeks off to begin with? Now Devin Booker's the man, and while I love Devin Booker, and he is the best player on the Phoenix Suns, I said Chris Paul is without a question the more valuable player. on Phoenix. Devin Booker was the man for the first 5 years of his career in Phoenix, and outside of the last year, they never sniffed the playoffs. In the last 2 games, he has been abysmal, including last night, 5 for 21 from the field and 15 points. Game 1, he put up, it was a masterpiece, 40-point triple-double. That's exactly what you need when Chris Paul's out. That's what your best player's got to do. But in Game 2, he struggled, and last night, 5 for 21. Got to be better. You say, well, it's the broken nose. Listen, a lot of players, a lot of great players, and I think Devin Booker is a borderline great player. A lot of great players in the history of the NBA have broken their nose, and it affected almost nothing. Now, great, I'm talking about great players, and if Devin Booker is on the precipice, some have called him the next Kobe, which I think is just asinine. But if he's that, you got to be better than 5 for 21. I'm sure he'll respond in Game 4. But Chris Paul himself, not surprisingly, because like I said, coming back from COVID and from already having 2 weeks off, 5 for 19 from the field, 15 points. Now, he did give you 12 assists, so you'll take that if you're Phoenix. But even last night, you look at the other Suns. Jay Crowder, only 9 points. You need more from him. Dario Saric gave you 2. Cam Johnson gave you 12 in 30 minutes. I guess you'll take that from him. Cameron Payne came back down to earth, right? Had 27 Game 2. Like, oh, they don't need Chris Paul. Yeah, he only had 2 last night. Cameron Payne's a nice player. He's had a really good playoff run with the Suns this year, but, he's a guy. He's a guy. He's not a star. He's not, he's a guy. He's a guy. He's a backup point guard in the NBA. There's no shame in that. No shame coming off the bench for Chris Paul. None whatsoever. But, you got to get more than 2 points from him. The Clippers are going to win the series. You look at who have been the most consistent playoff performers individually this year for the Clippers. Reggie Jackson. Now, Marcus Morris last night wasn't great. But for the most part, you know what you're getting from him. Good defense and can knock down threes. The perfect 3-and-D player. And surprisingly, and this caught me completely off guard, starting in Game 5 of the previous series, it's been Paul George. It's been Paul George. He had the 37-point outing in Game 5, leading the Clippers to a huge road win over the Jazz to take a 3-2 lead. And down 25, he, along with Terrence Mann, lead the Clippers back to beat the Jazz, to stun the Jazz in Game 6 to advance to this point in the Western Conference Finals. And I know everybody, all the pandemic P memes, all the playoff PU, way off George, Waldo George, all the memes were coming out after Game 2. After he missed those 2 free throws that could have, certainly Phoenix might have had a shot to tie it with a 3. Who knows what happens. But he has a shot to essentially ice the game at the end of Game 2. Clippers up 1, in case you didn't know. Clippers were up 1. 8 seconds left. Paul George gets fouled to go to the free throw line, and he misses both. And he's an 86% free throw shooter. Like we expect him to make those, and he went 0 for 2. And of course, as we all know, Phoenix wound up winning the game basically at the buzzer. And so my response yesterday was, hold on a second. Hold on a second. They would have never even been in the position to win the game, to have him hit 2 free throws to put them up 3, if it weren't for him being Paul George. They were down 6 with under 3 minutes left. He hits a 3. They come back down. They're down 3. Jumper. 1-point game. Layup. They're up 1. So Booker comes on the other end, hits a jumper. Phoenix is back up by 1. Paul George comes back, hits another jumper. So not 9 points by Paul George. It reminds me a little bit of 2013 in Game 6 of the finals when it was, Heat Spurs. Spurs got a 3-2 lead. And the Heat went into the fourth quarter of that game down double digits. And LeBron scored 12 points by himself in the fourth quarter. But all everybody talked about was LeBron missed the tying 3 to send the game to overtime, and Ray Allen saved his legacy. Now, that was, in my view, that was the clutchest shot in the history of the NBA hit by Ray Allen. Not taking anything away from him. He would have never even been in the position to hit the clutchest shot in the history of the NBA if it weren't for LeBron James scoring 12 points in the fourth quarter. Similar to the Clippers. If it's not for Paul George, they probably lose by 7, 8 points instead of the Suns having to win it basically at the buzzer. So you look at Paul George's stat line, you say 9 for 26, 3 for 11 from 3, inefficient, but he hit the shots when matter. Every time Phoenix tried to make a run, tried to get back in the game, it was Paul George who said, no, this is my night. This is our night. We're getting back in the series tonight. We're not going down 3-0. And the man gave you 27, 15, and 8. 2 assists away from a triple-double. That's what great players are supposed to do. That's what they're supposed to do. This is what Paul George was brought to LA to do. Because the Clippers, when they signed Kawhi Leonard back in 2019, they knew he's had injuries. You don't always know if he's going to be there when you need him. And of course, we all know this year, we still don't know the severity of the knee issue. Obviously, when it first happened, the Clippers feared it could be an ACL. So we don't know the severity of Kawhi's injury right now. But they said, we're going to trade for Paul George to get Kawhi as running mate, to get him over here to LA. And if Kawhi goes down, we need this guy to step up. And he's done exactly that. And I did not think he was capable. I was in that crowd. Not that long ago. What, 2 weeks ago? A week ago. I was in that crowd of Pandemic Pete saying, when you need it the most, Paul George, nowhere to be found. And that was the case the last few years. This year, doesn't even look like the same player. Doesn't even look like the same player. And I think some of this, obviously a lot of his struggles, I think, were psychological. A lot of people talking about this with Ben Simmons and his situation he's dealing with at the free throw line. I think with Paul George, it was this. When did we first start really noticing Paul George, like, oh my God, in the biggest games, where is he? Like he's not just a lesser version of himself. He's like horrible, terrible in these games. We started noticing that around 2018. Well, 2018, he had a co-star on his same level, if a little better, a little worse, give or take. Westbrook and Paul George are kind of on that same level, even today. Although I put Paul George above Russ today, without a doubt. But they were kind of on that same level. Well, Paul George had never really played with a guy up until that point where it's like, oh, okay, I got to make sure he gets his shots too. He gets his touches. And so I think it messed with him a little bit. Same in 2019. He was with Russ. Do I defer to him? Do I take the shot? There was that hesitancy. And then a year later with Kawhi Leonard, well, I definitely got to defer to him. He's definitely better than me. So he's got to get his shots. Like, when do I take mine? There was that uncertainty. There was that hesitancy. Now he knows I'm the man. We saw it in the early stages of his career in Indiana. He had some great playoff performances in Indiana. You look at 2012, 2013, 14. Like, he was that guy. It was just Indiana lost to a better Miami Heat team. They lost to LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, which, newsflash, they beat everybody in the East, Indiana included. But I think now, because Paul knows, okay, they're relying on me. I'm the man. I'm the best player on the team. I got no hesitancy. I can play my game on both ends. And that's exactly what he's been doing. He's completely outplayed Devin Booker in this series thus far. And I just think with all that combined, you look on the Clippers side, first of all, they've been here before. They've been down 0-2 in the last two series and won them both. And, now they're down 2-1. Ty Lue has coached an unbelievable playoff run for the Clippers. Outcoached Rick Carlisle in round 1, completely outcoached Quinn Snyder in round 2. And Quinn Snyder's a great coach, so that's saying something. And at least last night, he outcoached Monty Williams, who could win Coach of the Year this year, possibly. So, hats off to Ty Lue. I think he's really earning the respect that he's deserved. I feel like a lot of people back in 2016 when he was the head coach of the Cavs, they're like, oh, of course he won the championship. You had LeBron and Kyrie and Love and all those guys. Oh, coaches got to make the adjustments. Like, people forget some of the adjustments that Ty Lue made to help the Cavs come back from 3-1. LeBron was a story. Absolutely. No question he should have been. He scored 41 in games 5 and 6 and had a triple-double and one of the most iconic blocks, if not the most iconic block, still haunts me to this day as a Warriors fan in NBA history. Kyrie deserves plenty of flowers himself. Hit the game when he shot in Game 7 and played outstanding in games 5, 6, and 7. But Ty Lue made those adjustments back in 2016 to help beat Golden State. And so I feel like he didn't get enough credit back then. Now we're seeing, okay, he don't have LeBron. He don't have the second greatest player ever. It's not a knock on Paul George, but he's not LeBron, obviously. He's got a good team. He's got a very good team. And he's making the adjustments needed that are necessary in order to put the Clippers in the position to win. And so hats off to him. Big hats off to Paul George once again, playoff P. Proving all the doubters wrong. I'm no longer a doubter. So he's not proving me wrong at this point. I'm giving him credit where credit's due, because that's what we do on the show. When I'm wrong, I will come out in a minute. And I was dead wrong about Paul George this playoff run. So hats off to him. Hats off to Reggie Jackson, who I'm calling Mr. June, obviously as a paying homage a little bit to Reggie Jackson, obviously the greater Reggie Jackson, Mr. October of the Yankees. But I just think the Clippers got the advantage now, because now they're saying, okay, guys, we've been here before. We've been down 0-2. This is nothing. We're on a 5-game home winning streak. As long as we take care of business at home, we just got to win one road game. Did we have a great chance in Game 2? Yeah, had a great chance to win Game 2 on the road last series against the Jazz, and they just kind of fizzled out in the end. Well, now they can look back at Game 5. Nobody thought we could win, and we did. Take care of business at home. Just got to get one on the road. And you look on Phoenix's side, when Devin Booker's the man, when Devin Booker is really counted on, it's not there. It's not there. And I don't want to hear about the broken nose. A lot of great players have had broken noses, and it didn't really affect them whatsoever. And so I've been hearing Devin Booker is the most valuable player on the Suns. Show me. And Chris Paul, the true most valuable player on the Suns, out 2 weeks with COVID. And because of the fact that the Suns won their series 2 weeks ago against Denver, and conditioning, getting his energy back from having the virus, like the breaks are starting to go the Clippers' way now. Even without Kawhi Leonard, I think they're the better team. I think they win this series in 6 games. I think they win the next 3 and advance to the NBA Finals, which I did not see coming. So let me shift now to Kevin Durant, Scottie Pippen. Man, so they're going back and forth now, because it all started with Steve Kerr. And I had talked about this very subject on the show yesterday, about Steve Kerr saying that KD, Kevin Durant, is more skilled, not better. Nobody thinks Kevin Durant's better than Michael Jordan, including myself. Nobody thinks that, but more skilled than Jordan. And yeah, everybody's like, oh my God, it's the worst. And I said in the show, he's absolutely 100% correct. Is Jordan better? Duh. He's the greatest ever. So he's better than KD. He's better than everybody. But KD could do a lot of things Jordan could not do, or could not do to the level KD. First of all, KD's the better ball handler. He's 7 feet tall, so that's already a huge advantage there. But he's 7 foot with a crossover. Obviously, he's a better three-point shooter than Jordan was. That's not debatable. Better free throw shooter than Jordan was. That's not debatable. Look at the numbers. Better shot blocker than Michael Jordan. That's not debatable. Look at the numbers. Can shoot from anywhere on the floor. And Jordan's mid-range was lethal. Jordan, I'm giving him the mid-range. Probably the greatest mid-range shooter ever. It's either him or Kobe, and I'd probably say Jordan because Kobe took up after Michael Jordan. His post-game, unstoppable. His attacking, and when he attacked the rim, obviously he's better than KD. He's probably the greatest guard attacking the rim that we've ever seen. But as far as skill, pure God-given skill, it's Kevin Durant, without a doubt. And so Scottie Pippen, obviously former teammate of Jordan, 6-time champion, and one of the 50 greatest players of all time, chimed in. He didn't, he certainly didn't disagree, or he didn't agree with his former teammate, Steve Kerr. He said, quote, KD, as great as his offense was, it turned out to be his worst enemy because he didn't know how to play team basketball. Whoa. And KD, we know how KD is. He responded. He said, didn't the great Scottie Pippen refuse to go in the game for the last second shot because he was in his feelings? His coach drew up a play for a better shooter. Ooh. Okay. First of all, KD is 1,000% right about that. What KD said was 100% facts. All you got to do is go back to 1994 For context, it was the first year the Bulls had without Michael Jordan. That was his first retirement when he went to play baseball. And Scottie Pippen was the man, and he had himself a great season. Bulls won 54 games, and they're in the second round against the New York Knicks. And they're down. There's about, I guess there was like 2 seconds left or something like that. And Phil Jackson drew up a play for Tony Kukoc. Now, Kukoc was a better shooter than Scottie. Scottie was never known as a great shooter. Kukoc was. And so Phil Jackson drew up a play for Tony Kukoc to take the final shot of the game. And because the ball wasn't going to Scottie, he said, forget it, I'm not going to the game. And Phil Jackson, you can go watch The Last Dance. And I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, are you not going to the game? And Scottie Pippen just was emotionless. And Phil said, forget him. I can't remember who he put in the game for Scottie, but Scottie wasn't in the game for the final play, and Kukoc made the game-winning shot at the buzzer. But it sucked the life out of the Bulls, and they ended up losing the series to the Knicks, I believe in 6 games. So we're going to talk about team basketball. Scottie, you quit on your team. KD's never been accused of quitting on his team. We've never had any evidence of that. First of all, first 9 years, well, I should say KD's second year is when Westbrook came along. Oh, you're picking on Westbrook. Listen, truth hurts. Next 8 years of KD's career after his rookie year in Oklahoma City, it's kind of hard to play team basketball when the point guard, who is a way inferior shooter to you, obviously a way less of a player than you are, and Westbrook's a great player. He's a Hall of Famer, but he darn sure ain't Kevin Durant. When he's taking a majority of the shots, when he's making the biggest decisions as the point guard late in these big playoff games and you're not, it's kind of hard to play team basketball. That's why he left. That's why he went to go to a point guard that's unselfish. And that unselfish point guard, Steph Curry, I'm going to talk about him later on in the show and why he should not leave Golden State. But he went to an unselfish team with an unselfish system and won 2 championships. You say, oh, they were loaded. So was Brooklyn. They lost in the second round. So you got all these variables factoring into, and even people came after me for what I said. I actually commented on the score was who put this quote up that I'm using right now for Scottie and Kevin. And I commented, basically saying, nobody thinks KD's better than Jordan. Nobody. But overall skill, KD's better. And even Austin Rivers, big shout out to him, actually agreed with me. He said, this is correct. So thank you, Austin. But I absolutely side with KD. Absolutely. Scottie Pippen is the same guy. And I don't want to disrespect Scottie. He's a 6-time champion. He's one of the greatest defensive players ever. He's one of the 50 greatest overall players ever. Michael Jordan himself acknowledged that they would not have won 6 championships if it weren't for Scottie, and I concur, I agree. But Scottie Pippen has a memoir coming out this fall. I may buy it, I may not. May add for some compelling topics on the show, we'll see. But they had an excerpt from the book in which Scottie basically said, I was the Bulls. That was me. And it's like, what? Hold on. Michael Jordan got drafted by the Bulls in 1984. Not only did the Bulls have no history of winning, they were called the Traveling Cocaine Circus. They weren't really even known more. They were known more for, other things than basketball. And Michael Jordan turned that into a 6-time champion. Scottie came in 1987, I think it was. I believe he was drafted in 87 by the Supersonics and then traded to the Bulls. And Scottie Pippen didn't really come of age, if you will, with the Bulls until their first championship run. Like, he inherited the greatest player ever. You know what I'm saying? So this notion that he's taking a shot, Kevin Durant, say you don't play team basketball. When you were the man, Scottie, you refused to even go in the game. You would not even go into the basketball game if the shot was not drawn up for you. Same can't be said about KD, and a lot of other great players. So I just think there's a lot of hypocrisy in the statement by Scottie. And like I said, the Bulls do not win 6 championships without him, without a doubt. But this is ridiculous. I mean, like I said, he's got a memoir coming out, and basically where he said, "Yeah, I made the Chicago Bulls." Give me a break. KD even went on to say he said they didn't follow you. He's talking about when Jordan was not with the Bulls when he had retired the first time. He said they didn't follow you, man. They followed Phil. Phil Jackson was the leader of that team, not you. Come on, man. Quit capping. So let's talk about Steph Curry. Greatest shooter ever, best point guard in the league, second greatest point guard, I believe, to the great Magic Johnson. There's been a discussion over the last, I guess, 3 months or so, going back to the All-Star game, it seems like, is Steph Curry going to leave the Warriors? Now, for those of you that don't know, Steph is going into the final year of his deal with the Warriors. He could be, if he does not sign an extension this year, he will be a free agent in 2022. And there's this, is he going to leave? Now, I don't know. My gut tells me he's probably going to stay. I'm a Warriors fan. I'm going to come at this as objectively as possible. As objectively as possible. As a Golden State fan, I think he'll sign. I'm not going to come out and say, oh, he's going to sign. I think he's going to stay. I'm about 80-20. Maybe higher. About 80-20. He's going to stay. I think he would be crazy to leave the Warriors. Why is that? First of all, he could make more money, a lot more money with the Warriors, especially if he signs a deal. If he signs that extension, this is the same situation Giannis was in last offseason, and he signed the extension. If Steph signs his, he'll become the highest paid player in NBA history again, and he'll make on average $53 million per. Woo, that's a lot of dough. That's a lot of bread. Okay? Not only will he make more money, can we take a good look around the Western Conference right now? Can we take a good look? Let's just go down with all the playoff teams. Utah Jazz, I think they're building something, but they couldn't get past the Clippers without Kawhi. They had a 25-point lead in Game 6 and couldn't close the deal. Rudy Gobert is a liability, and Donovan Mitchell does not have a second star. Donovan Mitchell is a superstar. He doesn't have a number 2. And Utah's a small market, so they'll have to trade for somebody. So in order to do that, they'll have to give up depth. Maybe have to give up guys like Clarkson or Ingles. They'd have to give up depth to get the second superstar instead of just signing somebody, because nobody's going to Utah. Nobody's going to sign with the Jazz. It's a small market. Let's look at Phoenix. Chris Paul might not even be there next year. And you've heard me say on this show, Phoenix is crazy talented. But without Chris Paul, they are not a championship contender. He may go to the Lakers. I've heard that's a possibility, which, man, that'd be scary if he goes there. So Chris Paul, if he's gone, so is Phoenix. We look at the 3 seed, Denver Nuggets. Now, I think Denver is going to be a real threat these next 5 years. I think they've got a legit big 3 in Jokic, Murray, once he gets back from the ACL, and Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr., I said back in 2018, was the steal of the draft. Why? Because going into that college basketball season before the draft, he was projected to be the number 1 pick. But he hurt his back. He had a season-ending back injury and ended up getting taken 14th. So he slid all the way down to Denver, and so they got first overall pick talent with the 14th pick. They got a steal. Denver is building something. And I think Mike Malone, I feel like he gets too much crap. I think he's a great coach, or at least a very good one. He's a more than competent head coach. So I think Denver, I fear Denver. If I'm a Warriors fan, I fear Denver. Okay? The Clippers. You don't know what you're getting from the Clippers. Health-wise, chemistry-wise, game to game, you don't know what you're getting. I mean, you really don't. So you got that. Dallas, not a fan. They hired Jason Kidd as their head coach today. I don't like the hire at all. I think Chauncey Billups would have been a better hire. I think Becky Hammon would have been a better hire. Jason Kidd, Brooklyn, didn't really go anywhere. Milwaukee, maybe he developed Giannis, which if so, maybe he deserves credit for that. Maybe he doesn't. But they never did much in the playoffs. So I think he goes to Dallas, and it's like Rick Carlisle, a championship-winning head coach, couldn't really get this team anywhere. And while they've got Luka, they don't have a second star. And for some reason, free agents really don't go to Dallas. I don't know why. Dallas is a big market. They're well run. Last 10 years or so, they really haven't been able to attract any free agents. So that's an obstacle they got to overcome. Portland, Dame may leave. If Dame leaves, Portland's completely out of the playoff picture. Forget championship. They're not in the championship picture with Damian Lillard. Without him, they're a lottery team. Okay, so we look at the Lakers. Now, the Lakers are the real key piece here. LeBron's going to be back. He's going to be LeBron. He's going to be 37 years old in year 19. We're not going to see the best of LeBron, but he's still going to be LeBron. He's still going to be a top 3 player in the NBA. He'll still put up the numbers. He'll still win a lot of games for the Lakers. It's everybody else I'm worried about. Anthony Davis, when he's healthy and when his mind is in it, he's a top 5 player in the league. He's the best big in basketball. But that's not always the case. That's not always the case. You got to worry about his health. Outside of his first year with the Lakers, he's gotten hurt every single year he's been in the league. And then you look at the rest of the Lakers roster. Are you kidding me? First of all, Montrez is going to leave. Kuzma, don't bring up Kuzma. Don't bring up Kyle Kuzma around Lakers fans. They may slap you. They don't like Kuzma. I don't blame them. Dennis Schroeder, he's going to leave. And then who's your point guard? Caldwell Pope. I like Caldwell Pope. Maybe they keep him. Marc Gasol's probably going to retire or sign somewhere else as a backup center. And Frank Vogel's not that dude as a head coach. So I really don't fear the Lakers. And then 8th, Memphis. I think Memphis is building something for the future, but I don't think they're as far along as, say, Denver. Like, Denver's had some playoff runs under their belt. Like, a lot of people think, hey, if they're healthy this year, maybe they're in the Western Conference Finals right now. Maybe that's the case. Instead of Phoenix. Who knows? So I think that factors in. So if for Steph, where would he go where he has a clearer path to the title? Because if he goes to the Lakers, great, you got LeBron, but AD, you don't always know what you're getting from AD. And by the way, if the Lakers got to pay LeBron, AD, and Steph, they will have no bench at all. At least they got some money to pay some guys. Obviously, having LeBron and AD on, the max contracts. But if they sign Steph, no bench. So you're with Golden State, where Klay's coming back. Klay's going to be Klay. Draymond's coming back. Now, it's not prime Draymond Green from 2016, but he was top 5 in steals and assists this year. He can still play, and he always elevates his game in the playoffs. You got James Wiseman, who I think when it's all said and done will be the best player coming out of the 2020 draft. Yes, I said it. Not LaMelo, not Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman. Keep in mind, James Wiseman played 3 games of college basketball. He comes in the NBA. He hadn't played any basketball in a year, and he had injury after injury after injury, culminating in, I think it was a meniscus tear. It might have been an MCL. He had a knee injury that ended his season, is all you need to know. You've got Steve Kerr, one of the best coaches in the league. You've got young guys like Jordan Poole, Eric Paschall, right? Juan Toscano-Anderson. Young guys that give you good minutes, that can knock down the 3, that can play defense. You got Andrew Wiggins, who's a guaranteed 20 a night. Andrew Wiggins is always healthy, and he's always going to give you 20 a night. You know what you're getting. You know what you're getting. The people say, no, you don't. Well, you look at Andrew Wiggins as number 1 pick Andrew Wiggins from 2014. That's not who he is, right? He's not. He's obviously proved himself to not be the number 1 pick back in 2014. But he's not only a starter, he gives you 20 a night. He gives you 20 a night. And so you can count on that. He's an upgrade. He's a better Harrison Barnes. Remember Harrison Barnes with the Warriors the first 2 years of their dynasty? He was good. Obviously, he got replaced by one of the best ever, Kevin Durant. But you have Andrew Wiggins, better three-point shooter than Barnes, better scorer than Barnes, better defender than Barnes. So you got an upgrade. So all that considered, Steph will make more money in Golden State. He's got one of the better rosters, one of the better championship rosters in the league. The West is dicey at best. Outside of the Nuggets and the Lakers, chemistry is a big question for a lot of teams. You could throw the Jazz in there as well. Teams that have been together a long time. Why would he leave Golden State? By the way, he's the man there. He is the man. It's the NBA dream. It is the dream of every NBA player to be the man, to be a champion, and to make a lot of money. And Steph gets all three. He's got an ownership group and a general manager that's as aggressive as there is. Remember, the Warriors have 2 first-round picks this year. 2, because they got the second one because they fleeced a dysfunctional organization, the Minnesota Timberwolves. People thought Minnesota won the trade because Golden State traded D'Angelo Russell for Andrew Wiggins. I said, guys, this is crazy. Of course Golden State won the trade. Andrew Wiggins is a better player and fits better into Golden State system than D'Angelo Russell. And they get, if Minnesota's 2021 pick is not a top 3 pick in the lottery, it belongs to Golden State, which, as we all saw in the lottery, Golden State, 7th overall pick and 14th overall pick. I think they should move both because I think 2 young players, as nice as it'll be, they can't help you right now to win a championship. So I think you package those 2 picks and see if you can get a good quality starter or maybe even add some more depth. But Golden State's ready to win now. They've won 3 championships. They won 1 without Kevin Durant, so this is not just they need KD. Well, they won 1 without him and went to 2 straight finals without him and almost won 1 championship in 2019 when he was hurt without him, if Klay doesn't go down. So I don't understand why Steph would leave. Now, if he does, if he wants to do what's best for his career, that's up to him. He's going to do what he believes is going to, put him in the best chance to win a championship. Because he's got his money. He's got a lot of money. Under Armour, all these endorsement deals, and obviously Golden State's paying him a fortune as he deserves. Okay, but I think when you look at how the Warriors are constructed, they're ready to win now. They've won championships together before. They're deep. You got an all-star in Klay Thompson. You got a borderline all-star in Draymond. Andrew Wiggins gives you 20 a night. And they got 2 first-round picks that they can turn into another productive player for them. And it better not be Ben Simmons. I'm hearing reports they might trade for Ben Simmons. Man, I may disown the Warriors if they trade for Ben Simmons. NBA's Jay Cutler. There ain't no way I want Ben Simmons anywhere near the Warriors organization. No, thank you. No, thank you. Anybody but Ben Simmons. But in all seriousness, they can turn those 2 first-rounders this year into, they could trade them and get a productive player or 2. So hopefully that is the case. And, it's kind of like when KD left in 2019. I didn't really understand it. Well, he didn't like Draymond. That wasn't the case back then or even today. Him and Draymond said they text every day. So they got over that, incident where, Draymond said, we don't need you. We won without you. Leave, and called him the B word multiple times. They've moved past that. So Draymond wasn't the issue. You had a championship coach in Steve Kerr, Steph, Klay, and he left to join Brooklyn with 2 other superstars, Kyrie and James Harden. But Kyrie, you don't know what you're getting from night to night as far as health. And with James Harden in the playoffs, you do know what you're getting. And it's not good. Bad playoff resume. And so, KD wanted Brooklyn. He got his points. He got his 48 points in Game 7, but ultimately lost to a superior team. He wouldn't have to worry about that in Golden State, but he left. That's why I think Steph would be making a big mistake if he left the Warriors. Now, that's as objective as I could possibly be as a Golden State Warriors fan. That's as objective as I can possibly be. I feel like I passed the objectivity test. Hopefully I did in your eyes. So NFL topics. Haven't done an NFL topic in like 3 weeks. But Dak Prescott, my man. I'm actually for the YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter audience, I'm wearing my Dak hat, as I wear many times on this show. It's very comfortable. Y'all to get one for yourself. It'll make you feel like a one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, which Pro Football Focus says he is. Now, Pro Football Focus, they've caught some flack over the last few years, over their rankings and lists that they make. But these people sit around all day, every day, all 365 days of the year, during the season, during the playoffs, during the offseason, and they do absolutely nothing but watch film. They are just watching film all day long. And based on what they see, they ranked their top 50 players in the National Football League. And among the quarterbacks, they ranked Mr. Rain Dakota Prescott the 6th best in the NFL, which is exactly at the end of the season where I ranked Dak. He is the 6th best quarterback in the NFL, and I agree with the 5 that they put above him. Tom Brady's better, no doubt, greatest ever. Pat Mahomes is better. Russ is better. Aaron Rodgers is better, and Josh Allen is better. Sorry, fellow Cowboy fans, I got to put Josh Allen. Every year, he just keeps getting significantly better from the year before, and he was in the MVP discussion this year. Like I got to put Josh Allen 5. So I know a lot of people aren't going to like this. Oh my gosh, Dak is 6. There's no way he's above Lamar Jackson. Except even despite the MVP, what's Lamar in the playoffs? Well, what's Dak in the playoffs? Lamar's 1-3. Dak's only 1-2. Okay. Let me give you some numbers. So Dak Prescott, in the 2 playoff losses in his career, his defense gave up 30 points. 30-plus points. Against the Packers, they lost that game 34-31. And against the Rams, 2 years later, they lost 30-22. So the defense gave up 30. Well, he's got to be able to help them rise above it. Let's see how other great quarterbacks stack up in the playoffs when their teams give up 30-plus. Tom Brady, greatest ever. He's 500, 2-2. Aaron Rodgers is 1-5. Worse record than Dak. Breeze, 0-3. Montana, the 2nd best quarterback ever, Joe Montana, never won a playoff game when his defense gave up 30 points. Brett Favre, 0-7. Peyton Manning, 2-4. Russell Wilson, 0-3. Troy Aikman, great Cowboy quarterback, 0-2. Steve Young, 0-4. Ben Roethlisberger, 0-6. John Elway, it might be the 3rd best quarterback ever. Or excuse me, the 4th best, behind Peyton, 1-6. Staubach, great Cowboy quarterback, 0-1. Kurt Warner, 0-2. Eli Manning, 0-1. So you say Dak's got to help them rise above it, right? If the defense gives it 30-plus, well, the Cowboys offense just got to score more. Not that simple. The best record of all the quarterbacks I mentioned was Tom Brady. Best ever to ever do it. He's 2-2. 500. It's hard to win in the playoffs, especially because we all know game plans change in the playoffs. They completely change in the playoffs than what they are in the regular season. So, I just look at this and I say, if the criticism of Dak Prescott is he can't win in the playoffs because his team gives up 30, well, that's good news because every quarterback that's ever played in the NFL, when their team gives up 30-plus, none have winning records. None of the great quarterbacks have winning records. So that aside. So, I just look at what I love about Dak is the goalpost has moved on the narrative about him. So 2016, he comes in the NFL. He's a 4th-round rookie. And the Cowboys go 13-3, and they're the best record in the NFC. Well, it was Zeke. It was Ezekiel Elliott. And Zeke was great. That was the best season of his career, his rookie year. And the running game opened it up for the passing game. Now, anybody that knows football knows that's true. Even me as a Dak fan, yeah, absolutely. Zeke opened up the passing game for Dak Prescott. And so people said, oh, he's winning, but he's not putting up the numbers. Okay. Well, 2017, there's no Zeke, and the Cowboys struggle a little bit. Oh, there you go. Dak's the liability. 2018, they struggle out the gates with Zeke. They trade for Amari Cooper, a borderline number 1 receiver. They won 7 of their last 8 games. Well, he's winning, but the numbers still not exactly where we want it to be. Okay. The year after, Dak does put up big numbers. Throws for 30 touchdowns. Throws for 4,900 yards. Cowboys offense was great in 2019. But missed the playoffs due to coaching decisions or defense. At times, Zeke, and missed the playoffs. And so we go to 2020. This past year, Dak obviously only played or didn't even complete 5 games. He appeared in 5 games, and of course in the 5th he broke his ankle. But in those 4 games, Dallas only scored 17 the first game against the Rams. And people, for some reason, people thought that was like Dak's best game. And I was like, Dak played well, but I expect more out of Dak Prescott as a Dak fan. So we go to week 2. Well, they only won against Atlanta because Atlanta botched the onside kick. You're absolutely right. I can sit here and say I watched that game start to finish. Yes, they should not have won that game. But even if they don't recover the onside kick and kick the game-winning field goal, the Cowboys offense would have still put up 37 points. That should be enough to win. The following week, they fall down by 15 points against the Seattle Seahawks. Well, it was garbage time. Dak's big numbers, threw for 450 yards. It was garbage time. Is garbage time, do you consider that up by 1 with 3 minutes left, which the Cowboys were? When Dak Prescott left the field, the Dallas Cowboys had a 1-point lead. And the defense, right on schedule, could not get a stop. The following week against the Cleveland Browns, the Cowboys offense scores 38 points, including 24 in the fourth quarter. They scored 24 points in the fourth quarter alone. Dak threw for over 500 yards, and they lost by 2 scores, by 11 points, because the defense couldn't stop the run, and when it really mattered, they couldn't stop Odell Beckham Jr. from basically, he covered about 100 yards in on the football field. It went down as a 50-yard touchdown run, I think it was, because they were at the 50-yard line. But they had Odell bubbled for a 20-yard loss, and he ends up taking it to the house. So that's my thing about Dak Prescott, is the fact that everybody moves the goalposts. Well, when he's winning, well, he's not putting up good enough numbers. And when he's putting up the numbers, well, he's not winning enough. Just be consistent. Every player in sports has a narrative surrounding him or her. That's the unfortunate reality. Just be consistent. That's all we're asking. So, Pro Football Focus, they do what I don't. They do what you don't. They sit around all day. Their job is to sit around and watch film. And they say only 5 quarterbacks in the entire National Football League are better than Rain, Dakota, Prescott. So I think Dak is going to be Comeback Player of the Year this year. And screw it. Let's put his name in the MVP discussion. Let's just go ahead and do it. Cowboys offense is great. At least the receivers are. I have questions about the offensive line and the running game. Definitely have questions about the defense. But I think Dak this year will carry the Cowboys to the NFC Championship game. I've said that on this show since March, since that deal was signed. And I think he's going to live up to it. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. I think they'll get one in these 4 years of this new contract that Dak signed. So shout out to Dak as always. And glad that the football experts, that the film experts are seeing what I'm seeing. So last topic of the day, we got Game 2, Eastern Conference Finals tonight. Atlanta Hawks, Milwaukee Bucks, 8:30 p.m. Eastern tip-off on TNT. It's going to be a fun one. I believe Milwaukee is favored in Vegas -6.5, so they really like the Bucks tonight. I do as well. Now, I said going into the series, I thought it was going 6 games. My My head told me, Bryson, 5. It's going to be over in 5. But I was like, you know what? I've disrespected Atlanta enough. I had them getting gentlemen swept in the first round against the Knicks. Well, they actually gentlemen swept the Knicks themselves. In the second round, I had them losing in 6 to the Sixers, and they ended up winning in 7, of course. And I said, you know what? Out of respect for Trae Young, Nate McMillan, and the Atlanta Hawks, I think they'll go out in 6 games, not 5. I think Milwaukee is a better team. And I also said on the show, by the way, Atlanta fans, don't get mad at me. If the Hawks were to win this series, I will pick them to win the NBA Finals over the Suns or the Clippers. That you have my word on that. As long as there's no injuries. Of course, I got that caveat there. As long as there's no significant injuries, I will take the Hawks to win the championship if they win this series. Although that might be a jinx because I picked against them the last 3. But anyways, game 2 tonight. I'm going to take the Bucks to win. I'm going to go with the final score. Let's go 107 to 101. I got the Bucks winning by 6. They do not cover. They barely don't cover. So sorry to the people out there that are betting Milwaukee minus 6.5. I don't think they'll cover the spread at home, but I think they get a big win. Remember, regardless of the result of tonight's game, Atlanta's got home court advantage. So Milwaukee's got to know, okay, we need to win this game to not go on the road down 2-0. Like, we don't want that. And so, they were down 2 on the last series. Difference is they got clobbered in Brooklyn the first 2, but at least they got to come back home. And as we all know, they ended up winning 4 of the next 5 games in the series. And so I look at this and I say, I think Trae is going to be Trae. He's been outstanding the entire playoff run. He'll give you, I got Trae Young dropping 34 and 12. 34 points, 12 assists. That's kind of what Trae Young has given the Hawks this postseason. He's been outstanding. But the Bucks got to do, and no pun intended, but the Buck stops at Mike Budenholzer's desk, because as much as I gave Trae Young his flowers, and he deserved them after game 1 on yesterday's show, equally I criticized Mike Budenholzer again, because like I said, the last 2 playoff games the Bucks have played, the best player on the opposing team went for 48 points. Kevin Durant in game 7 of the second round, and Trae Young in game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals on Wednesday night. So that to me is an indictment on Budenholzer, because he hasn't gotten through his head, make somebody else beat you. Hello? KD was killing you from game 1 to game 7. KD ate the Bucks lunch, and they were 2 inches away from it costing them their season, with KD's foot barely being on the 3-point line. Barely. If his feet aren't as big as they are, because obviously he's a 7-foot tall man, the Nets would be in the Eastern Conference Finals and the Bucks would be home. So they survived by 2 inches. They didn't double KD the whole series, and he made them pay. You'd think they'd learned their lesson in game 1 against the Hawks. Trae Young is obviously not KD, but he is a great player, and he can score. They didn't double Trae, who is significantly smaller than KD, can't score in all the ways that KD can, although he can score in his own right, and yet there was no adjustments. And that's what separates Ty Lue, Monty Williams, Nate McMillan from Mike Budenholzer. Mike Budenholzer is the worst coach left in the playoffs. He's the worst coach left. Why? Because the 3 I just mentioned, Monty Williams, Ty Lue, Nate McMillan, they make adjustments. Bud doesn't. He never has. Back in Atlanta, he didn't make adjustments. He's never been a good playoff coach. His first year with the Bucks in the 2019 Eastern Conference Finals, as we all know, the Bucks blew out the Raptors the first 2 games, took a 2-0 lead. Raptors tied the series, so got a big game 5. Series is tied 2-2. No adjustments. And the Bucks lost the series. And so a year later against the Heat are showing them to be like, oh, okay, this is a worthy opponent. No adjustments. Thus far, these playoffs, no adjustments. That to me is the biggest knock on Coach Bud. Make somebody else beat you. Kevin Huerter, if he beats you, you throw up your hands and say, well, you know what? At least Trey didn't beat us. If it's John Collins or Clint Capella or Lou Williams, so be it. But Trey cannot beat you tonight. You do not want to go down 2-0 and go on the road for games 3 and 4. You don't want to do that. You're not the Clippers, okay? You're not the Clippers. I think Giannis is going to have a big game tonight. I got him dropping 35 and 13, 35 points, 13 rebounds in game 2. Very similar to the stat line he had in game 1. And the Bucks win 107-101, and they tie the series. Game 3, I believe, will be on. Let me check this. I think it'll be on Sunday. Yes. Yeah, game 3 of the series will be on Sunday night in Atlanta, and game 4 will be in Atlanta Tuesday night. So got a lot of basketball to watch over the weekend. Game 2, Bucks, Hawks, tonight on TNT. Clippers, Suns, Game 4 tomorrow night, 9 o'clock Eastern, ESPN. And then Game 3 between the Bucks and Hawks in Atlanta, 8:30 Eastern, TNT. So a lot of basketball that we'll have to talk on Monday. Can't wait for it. It is the conference finals, and this is the end of our show. We thank you so much for stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving It Up Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter. Chime in the comments if you want. And the podcast episode, as always, will be available at 8 Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time after each live show. So hope to see y'all then. Enjoy the weekend. God bless you all. Peace out.